was in school, I was extremely sporty. I didn't have this sort of childhood fascination with fashion, which you would imagine that somebody like me who's now so deeply involved with this industry, really ask yourself that what content do you want to create and how can it actually add value to your community? To be authentic to your audience, to always put out any sort of content with genuinity attached to it, to promote things only that you would actually personally use. Hi, this is Masoom Minawala. I just did an episode with Decoding. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Decoding on ETimes, a show where we talk to your favorite celebrities and influencers about the reason why they went viral or trending on social media. And today I have Masoom Minawala Mehta joining me over a Zoom call, and I'll be talking to her and asking her to decode the life of a fashion blogger. Hi Masoom, how are you?
Hi Sheena, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Decoding is a show where we talk to, celebrities and influencers and ask them to decode, their life for us. So tell me something. I want to start from the start. Masoom as a college student. I know that in some of your interviews, you've spoken about how fashion was something that really, inspired you and you always wanted to do something in that field.
When I was in school, I was extremely sporty. I didn't have this sort of childhood fascination with fashion, which you would imagine that somebody like me who's now so deeply involved with this industry would have. But that's not actually, it was something I developed sort of in my teen years. I got very fascinated with magazines, with trends. I was studying in Mumbai when I did my first internship with a fashion designer. And that was my first ever foray into the world of fashion. And I hated the world of fashion design. So I thought I loved fashion, and then I did this internship and I was like, wow, this is not a part of it that I actually enjoy at all. But I still found myself very inclined to this industry, and I did a second internship, which was with the brand house of French Connection, Calvin Klein in India. Right. So over here, I really learned about the business of fashion, the merchandising, the buying, the marketing, the strategy that actually goes behind building a successful global brand, one that, consumers aspire to have and own and, want in their wardrobes. And in this internship, I actually stumbled upon the world of fashion blogging and content creation, which is 11 years ago from today. And that's how I actually started my journey, which was by, taking photos of my outfits and my looks and posting about it online and actually sharing my opinions, my views, my perspectives. Because at that time, we would always see fashion from a very aspirational lens, right? You'd see fashion from the lens of someone you couldn't relate to. So you'd see it on a model, on a billboard, or you'd see it in very glossy magazines, but you were not seeing it on people who look just like you, who you could actually drive that human connection with. And that's what I was able to build with my platform, with my blog at that time, which has now moved to social media platforms today. And that's what I continue to do, to actually share my opinion on fashion, beauty, lifestyle topics, and actually build a very strong connection with my community about it.
So whenever Masoom, we hear these talks on YouTube or, obviously these reels on Instagram about fashion blogging or any sort of content creation, they always say that the first step to doing content creation is to find your niche. And then today we see you create content across, like you just mentioned. You talk about investments, you talk about business, you talk about, of course, fashion is there, on your page, which we see a lot, but there's a lot more also that you talk about. So yes. What would be your sort of advice? Do you also feel that the first step is to find your niche?
So I think the first step, and I've said this before, that it's find your niche, but I feel like this term gets a bit confusing, right? So I would say you don't have to find a niche. You can actually have a much larger, broader perspective that you want to talk about. But I think the first step is asking yourself whether you actually have some value that you want to add, which is not existing already in the internet ecosystem. Right? So really ask yourself that what content do you want to create and how can it actually add value to your community? right? So, and I think that is the foundation, and that should be the foundation of you sort of walking into this career.
The first step would be, of course, to find something which can add value to the society, and of course to do something which is very different and out of the box, that nobody else has done. But then there's another school of thought that believes that if you actually follow what somebody successful is doing, then you can get half a successful, you can get half the success at least to start that. So how do you see that? Or it has to be a mix of both?
I think there's definitely a lot that we can learn, from mentors and people that we look up to. But I genuinely believe that you have to put in the work, right? I think if you can learn as much as you want and, gain knowledge or gain inspiration, but if you don't take the action yourself and you don't take that action repeatedly and consistently, it is very hard for you to actually achieve and build something of your own. For somebody like me and my entire industry, actually, and I really do respect my entire industry for that, is that we didn't have anyone to look up to.
Yeah.
Right? We're actually the first generation of content creators and influencers. So we are carving this path as we move along. We don't have mentors. We don't have established personalities in this industry because it's such a new industry. So we kind of are responsible for making sure that this path that we carve is one that is a strong foundation enough for others to venture into it. Like there's so many youngsters, there's so many, young men, women, all genders who actually want to enter the space, who want to work in fashion, who want to become content creators, influencers. But how? We have to build this into a solid enough business, one that's scalable, one that's long-term, one that can stand the test of time if we're actually encouraging others to join it.
There's another question that, pops up in a lot of people's mind when they think of content creation, which is that should I start this? Should I start my Instagram page or say a YouTube channel just because I am doing a job and I'm working, but I should start because this is something that I'm passionate about and then convert it into a business? Or I should think of it like a business, create a roster of what I'm going to do, when I'm going to put what out, chalk out my entire plan and then treat it like a business from the start and then build it. So
you can do either, to be honest. But what is really important is that this is a business that is very, there's a lot of misconception around it. Right? So everyone thinks that it's a very glamorous business. It's a very glamorous industry. It has so many perks, but people are not very aware of the realistic picture of what's actually going on behind the scenes. And that's something that I always try to talk about through my content, or what the negatives are, what the downsides are. And honestly, every business has this, right? Every business has upsides, has downsides, has strengths, has weaknesses. But I would highly recommend that, firstly, I would recommend everyone, if this is something that you're passionate about, try it out. There's no harm in trying it out. But if you're quitting your full-time job to do this, I would say make sure you keep some sort of duration to actually test this out, right? So to actually dedicate some time to figuring out whether this is something that is going to be viable for you or not.
When you obviously came to Belgium, you got married, you settled obviously here. So how was that? Tell me about those baby steps that you started taking. Did you, rope back to reaching out to the Indian brands to obviously, help you out in Belgium? Or did you find some new brands there? Or how did it happen?
Absolutely. So when I first moved here, and this is something I would like to address is when I got married, very unfortunately, a lot of my clients, a lot of my colleagues thought I wouldn't continue what I was doing just because I was married, right? And this was obviously a very incorrect assumption. And the only way to actually show them that how wrong they were was to be able to prove what I could achieve with my work. And that's exactly what I set out to do. So very unfortunately, a lot of the relationships that I'd built in India, a lot of my clients with a lot of PR companies, and I moved across country. So they actually assumed that I would discontinue my work and my career because I was getting married, which was a massive sort of, obviously, I don't think this is a question that's ever posed to a male or an assumption that's ever made about a male, but it was one that was made about me. And once again, I looked at this as a challenge that I actually had to face head on and be able to respond to for our entire gender, right? It stopped becoming sort of a personal battle anymore, because that's the level of unfairness that I thought came attached with this sort of notion. So what I did is, I actually started to build a base in Europe, right? I saw that there was this massive gap of Indian representation in the European and in the global markets. Even so, if you go for like an international fashion week, like Paris Fashion Week, I would see there were creators, influencers from all over the world, right? From the US, from Europe, from the UK, from China, from Australia, New Zealand, from different countries around the world. But there was no Indian there. And why? India has such an incredible and massive consumer base. Our purchasing power is, beyond brilliant when it comes to fashion and luxury. Our economy has been booming. Um, so why this gap, right? And I felt this need to be able to represent our country on these platforms, to actually have a voice, right? Because if I wouldn't be there, who would tell the story of India to the world? And at the same time, if I wouldn't be there, who would be able to communicate the global fashion story to India? So I found myself sort of positioned as this link between India and the global fashion industry. And I took it on as one of my purposes to be able to fulfill that to the best ability that I could. So even though I had moved out of India, I saw this actually as a sort of a moment of possibility, of growth, of opportunity, where I still had my Indian audience, I still had my Indian community, but I could actually be the link for them for the rest of the world. And that's what I actually built out my business structure to be. And the more and more I did it, Sheena, I honestly realized how much of a need there was for it, right? So somewhere it kind of stopped becoming about me and it actually became about being that link for my community, right? Actually creating value for my community. And when it stops becoming about you, it starts becoming a business. And that's how I was actually able to grow my business, grow my audience, solidify my relationships, work with some of the largest brands in the world who are so reputed with what they've built with their product, with their team, with their marketing innovation, and then be able to actually deliver that content back, uh, you know, to India, of course, but to Indians and South Asians all over the world.
And then of course when we have a look at your content, and of course your profile looks like a fashion bible, because there's like so much that's there, and there's like different outfits, whether it's ethnic, western, whatever. I want to know this from you, that there are certain reels that you've created inspired by Indian, a lot of Indians, right? And other things, that you take a lot of inspiration from India when you do some of your content. So I want to know that, how does that happen? And tell me, as a content creator, what is your process? Now, of course, you have a big team to support you. But at the time when you were doing it, like in the beginning, I would say, that time, what was your inspiration? How was your process like?
So my process has actually always been, how can I add value to my consumers? How can I add value to my audience? Right? So I always put myself in the position of my audience and think about it in reverse. So today, if I was following a content creator, an influencer, what is the kind of content that I want to see? So I'm in this phase of life where, for example, say a couple of years ago, all my friends are getting married. So what do I want to see from a content creator? I want to see outfit options that I can wear for my wedding. I want to see ways to actually wear one lehenga in like 6 different ways. Or I want to see how I can actually incorporate or take a heritage piece from my mom or grandmom's wardrobe and actually make it look modern. And every single time in life, or depending on, say, what our festive calendar is looking like, or what the world scenario is, I always ask myself that at this given time, what do I want to see from creators like me?
As a content creator and fashion blogger, what is the sort of message that you'd like to put out for anyone who's starting afresh, who's out there and who wants to dabble this opportunity?
Absolutely. I sincerely encourage more talent to come into the space. I think it's a fantastic industry. It's a booming industry, and we're really looking for more talent and more creators to actually come and join us on this journey. What's really important to know is that there are some principles that you have to remember while coming into the space.
Yeah.
Firstly, to be authentic to your audience, to always put out any sort of content with genuinity attached to it, to promote things only that you would actually personally use, and always keep your community and your audience at the very top, at the very helm of anything that you're putting out. Remember that you're creating for them. Secondly, I'd like to say that this job comes with a certain responsibility, right? So you have to ensure that as a creator, you find yourself at a position of privilege. You can actually influence thousands or hundreds or millions of people, depending on what your audience size is. But that responsibility has to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I'd like to say we all have very, very interesting stories to tell. And if we can find a way to tell it through digital content and actually help and be the link between consumers and brands, then you should might as well do it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and decoding, some aspects of your life as a content creator, and of course, talking about and giving a message out to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ina. Thanks for having me. Take care.